Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Tuesday, August 26th. I'm Samantha Rangel. The Valley is mourning the death of Joseph Castro, the former Fresno State president and CSU Chancellor.
What we're hearing is that Castro was very committed to education and to his role as president and supporting the faculty.
We process his legacy and impact on Valley education later in the show. But first, these headlines. Flags on the Fresno State campus are flying at half-staff as the community remembers former Fresno State president Joseph Castro. He died of cancer at the age of 58. Dr. Esteban Parra Guerrero worked closely with Castro. He says the loss is being felt deeply.
He was born with a gift to really connect with people. Just walking into the room, he would just line up the room, and it really just made you want to hug him because it was just a people's person.
Olga Nunez worked with Castro in and out of Fresno State. She says she will always remember his kindness.
He made me feel important when I was around, and he would give undivided attention to you. He wasn't looking around the room.
Castro was the first Latino and California native to lead the university. He oversaw rising enrollment and graduation rates during his tenure. The state has committed to fronting the cost of the November 4th special election on redistricting. Here's what else we know from CalMatters' Maya Miller.
The state hasn't released official estimates of how much the election might cost, but the failed recall effort of Governor Newsom in 2021 cost around $200 million. And the state's Department of Finance has said this election will likely cost more. One analysis from the GOP caucus put the cost as high as $235 million. Counties had been worried that they might have to wait to get reimbursed by the state for their expenses. But the new redistricting legislation says the state must pay counties up front. The special election may not be as much of a hassle for some counties, since several already had local elections slated for November 4th.
CalMatters' Maya Miller. The special election is estimated to cost Fresno County at least $4 million. The city of Kerman is situated in House District 13, currently represented by Democrat Adam Gray, but under a new proposed congressional map, Kerman would be adopted by House District 22. The change is meant to give Democrats an edge, as the seat is currently held by a Republican. 22-year-old Nali Quiñones is among those in Kerman who say they want to keep Democratic representation.
I don't know how I'd feel being like our new representative being Republican. I'd rather it be a Democrat, but I don't know. I feel like these small country, like farmer towns, they love their Republicans.
In total, California is looking to add 5 Democratic seats to the House. In other news, the California High-Speed Rail Authority is out with new analysis on how it can complete the rail line. The agency says it may want to build the rail in the valley without a Merced station for now to save on costs. The state legislature would have a final say on any changes, however, and Merced officials say the rail authority should reconsider since the city has been growing and the rail would be an added benefit. 2 new wildfires from this weekend continue to rage in Fresno and Kern counties. Evacuation orders are in place for Courtright Reservoir and Wishon Reservoir in Fresno County. The nearby Dinky Creek area is under an evacuation warning. In the Kern County mountains, the Little Fire is also burning dangerously close to the communities of Bodfish and Lake Isabella. Evacuation warnings and orders are also in place there.
There are only a couple of weeks before we pick the winner of KVPR's $10,000 drawing. Tuesday, September 2nd is the last day you can purchase a ticket that could nab you the big money, a 2-night stay in Pismo Beach, or $250 to restaurants in your community. Visit kvpr.org/10K today.
And now to our main story. As you heard earlier in the show, we have learned that Joseph Castro has died. He was the former Fresno State president from Hanford who rose to the ranks of California State University Chancellor. He was 58 and died of cancer, according to his family. Castro was the first Latino to lead both Fresno State and the CSU system. He inspired a lot of students, and he brought many positive changes to campus. Officials, including Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer and Democratic Congressman Jim Costa, released statements praising Castro for his work on education. But he also had a very dramatic and public fall from grace when he was found to have mishandled sexual harassment claims against another Fresno State administrator. KVPR news director Cresencio Delgado was a student editor at the Fresno State Collegian during Castro's tenure, and he edited countless stories while Castro led the university. Today, he's joining us to tell us more about Castro's impact and his legacy. He spoke with associate editor Carrie Klein, and he begins with the impression Castro made on students.
It seemed like Joseph Castro really tried to build connections with students. Students, the community, the faculty. He was from the Valley. And I think very early on, that was something he was very proud of, is that he could be from the Valley and leading a university from the Valley, which is very rare. And so I think he really leaned into that. Coming into Fresno State, he had said in a previous KVPR interview back in 2013 that he wanted to be a president for all students and all faculty. And he was always spotlighting students, inviting them to events with local leaders. And even when national speakers would come into campus, he always had a student presence. You know, one of the first interactions that I had with him was, I was a transfer student from Fresno City College to Fresno State. But when I got to Fresno State, he had asked me, where do you come from? Where are you from? And I had responded to him that I was originally born in Michoacan in Mexico, and he had shared that his own family comes from that state. And he always tried to find something to connect with the student. And that was especially evident at commencement speeches. He always encouraged students to pursue their education, to continue learning, and to chase their dreams.
To be bold. To
be bold, exactly. That's his signature motto. A lot of groups in the community also recognize him for this work in really promoting diversity and promoting inclusion especially, and really just having everybody have a seat at the table.
So what are some significant changes that he brought to campus?
So what I remember was that there was a very focused introduction of technology during Joe Castro's tenure at Fresno State. The enrollment at the campus grew significantly, and graduation rates were also increasing, especially among Hispanic students. That was an area where you really saw growth. And Dr. Castro was also the president during some very furious political moments, some of which we're still living in today. And so as president, he had to navigate professor scandals and, all that kind of stuff that comes with leading an institution of higher education. The reason I bring that up is because I noticed, especially being editor of the paper and covering so many of these stories, was that he really invited dialogue among some very hotly debated topics. And he had to walk this fine line of bringing people to the middle. Or I guess he was in the middle trying to bring people to him. And he was navigating an institution where students may have different opinions. The community may have different opinions. And I think that what he tried to do was always promote dialogue.
But of course, we can't talk about Joseph Castro without acknowledging scandal. It came to light that he had mishandled some claims of sexual harassment against a fellow administrator on campus. Can you review what happened there and how that ultimately affected his career?
Yeah, so that was tied to an administrator who worked with Castro in his Fresno State days, who had accusations against him. And eventually, based on investigative reporting and reviews, it came to be known that Dr. Castro had not elevated these concerns up to the proper channels, which ultimately led to the accusers in the case essentially not getting the due process that they had requested, or the justice that they were seeking based on these accusations against the administrator. And so then, Dr. Castro goes on to be the CSU Chancellor, and that's when this scandal comes back up. He had only been Chancellor for about 13 months, and he resigned just immediately after the reporting because of just intense pressure, both in the media and also the community, who was asking so many questions about why was not enough done to address these harassment cases at Fresno State. He did tell KVPR in 2022 that, based on audits and investigations, that there were changes that needed to be made. And based on the auditor recommendations, he said that those were appropriate and he supported them in order for these cases to not happen again.
So given all this, what does Castro's legacy look like for Fresno State and, the CSU community?
Well, I think hands down, a lot of people think Castro did a lot of good for Fresno State, really elevating the university, attracting students. And there were a lot of partnerships that were created with Fresno Unified and Fresno City. And as we all know, his signature motto again was "Be bold," and what he seemed to signal with that was to really tell students not to hold back in their pursuit of education and achievements. And in some ways, I think it's because it didn't seem like he did. I mean, he didn't hold back. That's going to be really the legacy that I think a lot of people are going to hold on to. I think a lot of us will remember the very large graduation ceremonies, especially for the Latino students, the Latino commencement, which is just, one big party. It's the one graduation ceremony at Fresno State that really fills up the Save Mart Center. And that's where Joe Castro really spoke about his own background and spoke to the families of the students. And, famously, his wife, Mary, is known for giving every single student a hug. And, every student wants the hug from Mary. And I think that made the bond from students with the Castros kind of even more heartwarming, because they knew that at graduation, they were not only going to shake Dr. Castro's hand, but they were going to get a hug from Mary. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about Dr. Castro, is his big speeches at graduations, his big plans for the university, and just being there for students on the ground with the students.
That's really lovely. So that's the impression that he leaves with students. And what about employees, faculty, and staff?
Yeah, well, faculty will tell you the same thing. I mean, a lot of faculty will say that Castro was a servant leader. That's what some faculty are saying now, after his passing, is that he served them and he served the campus. And one of the feelings that some faculty had was that Castro gave them undivided attention when he met with them and when he was interacting with them, asking them what they needed. What we're hearing is that Castro was very committed to education and to his role as president and supporting the faculty.
So despite his sort of tarnished reputation and his career that was cut short as chancellor, it seems like he really overall left a positive impression on the people he worked with.
It would seem so. I mean, even when he left Fresno State, people were surprised that he was leaving Fresno State because he had been there for so long. And I think there was a lot of excitement for him to be the CSU chancellor because of him having been at Fresno State. I think the faculty generally has a good review of him. And now, after his passing, I think many are reflecting on all the things that he did. And, he was there for a lot of people, students and faculty included.
So Castro died on Sunday of cancer. He was young, just 58. Do we know anything else about his final days?
Well, all we know for now is that he was being cared for at UC Irvine Medical Center. In just the last few weeks, it appeared that, some family and friends had been with him, sort of holding some celebrations with him. And the Castro family says that services will be held in Santa Barbara, but we don't know right now when that will be. And it's going to include just close friends and family.
Okay. Cresencio Rodriguez Delgado, news director here at KVPR. Thanks so much for joining me.
Of course, my pleasure.
And that's today's show. This episode was produced by Carrie Klein, Cresencio Rodriguez Delgado, and KVPR, with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Samantha Rangel. You can find your latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.